So this week, guys, it was about 60 degrees outside. The weather's starting to change. It's getting a little bit colder. My wife's had a cold for probably about 8 days. She's been sick, but she's starting to feel better. So I'm trying to sweat it out of her. You know, this week we made a chicken tortilla soup. That recipe's on my website. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. But today, we're gonna do a tortellini soup. It's a tomato-based tortellini soup. It's very, very simple, only a couple ingredients, very delicious. You guys are gonna wanna try this, especially if you're under the weather. Maybe it's cold outside, you want something to warm me up. But without further ado, let's get to cooking. All right, so tortellini soup. We're gonna make this vegetarian. Some people put sausage in it or some type of meat. I'm gonna leave it out this time. I'm gonna just make it a vegetarian dish. This kind of reminds me of something my mom used to make. She would make a sauce version of this, but without the tortellini. She poured over spaghetti, but she had like the spinach in there, the tomatoes. So this is just gonna be a soup version of that. So a couple ingredients of what you need. It's very, very simple. This is probably gonna be a very easy recipe for you. Probably one of the easiest recipes you've ever made. So first things you need is a 6 to 8 quart pot to make your soup in. Now, it's probably gonna come up about halfway on this. You can use a smaller pot if you'd like. I have some sherry cooking wine. You could also leave this out if you don't wanna use the wine, but I have a little bit of wine. You could also use Chardonnay if you'd like. We have a can of tomato sauce, a can of diced tomatoes. These are 28-ounce cans. We have about 8 ounces of cheese tortellini. This has Romano, Parmesan cheese in there, a little bit of ricotta. I have some fresh thyme, some garlic, 1 onion that's finely diced, a little bit of chili flake for some heat, and then we have some fresh basil, fresh spinach. This is about 2 cups of fresh spinach. And then you need just salt and pepper, a little bit of olive oil, and some chicken stock. Probably about 4 cups of chicken stock. Very simple recipe, guys. We're gonna dive right into it. We're gonna get our pot nice and hot, and then we're gonna start by caramelizing our onions. Okay, so we got our 6 to 8 quart pot on a medium heat. We're gonna add about a tablespoon or 2 of some olive oil. You just wanna coat the bottom of the pan with a little bit of olive oil. And then once that oil is hot, we're gonna add in our onion. Now this is just 1 small yellow onion, probably around 1/4 a cup or so, maybe 1/3 a cup of onion. Always season your onion with just a little bit of salt, helps to draw out some of the moisture. We're gonna add in some black pepper as well. Now what I'm looking for the onion, I do want these to caramelize slightly because I wanna release some of the sweetness into my soup because the tomatoes are gonna be slightly tart. So this is probably gonna take around 10 minutes or so. We're just gonna let this go for a little bit. Okay, so this is good enough for me. It's been a few minutes, our onions are nice and caramelized. Just gonna release some of that sweetness into our soup. We're gonna add a little bit of garlic here. It's about 3 cloves of minced garlic. About 1/4 teaspoon of red chili flake, because I like it a little bit spicy. And then we're gonna add a bunch of fresh thyme that I just wrapped up in some butcher twine so it's easier to fish out. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of basil now, because I like to add a little bit of basil during the sauteing phase. So now we're gonna give this a stir for about 30 seconds, just until you begin to smell that garlic. Now, when you add garlic, after you begin to smell it, you gotta put something wet on it. If you don't wanna use the wine, you don't have to, but I'm gonna add a little bit of some dry sherry, or you can use Chardonnay like I said before. If you don't wanna use the wine, you can add a little bit of chicken stock now. So now the thing with wine is, anytime you add some alcohol to anything, you gotta let it reduce by at least half. You gotta give the alcohol enough time to evaporate out, or else your soup's gonna taste a little bit boozy. So now at this point, our alcohol has been evaporated down. It's almost all the way gone. We're getting in our can of 28-ounce diced tomatoes, juice and all. 1 can of tomato sauce going in, and then about 4 cups of chicken stock. I told you guys, it's a simple recipe. So now I know this is gonna need a little bit more salt and pepper, so we're gonna season it with a nice pinch of salt now, a little black pepper. So now we're gonna turn our heat up, because we want this to simmer. We're gonna give us a quick stir to bring everything together. Now we want this soup to at least simmer for about 20 minutes, so it brings all the flavors together. So I'm gonna bring this to a simmer, and I'll be right back. Okay, so this took around 10 minutes to come up to a simmer. And we've let this simmer for about 20 minutes, and the reason being is I want those tomatoes to get soft. I want everything to come together. I want the soup to reduce so it gets slightly thick. So now we're gonna add in some more fresh basil. Then we're gonna add in our spinach. Spinach doesn't take long to cook, so you wanna add it at the end, pretty much. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and stir this in. Now, once this comes back up to a simmer, we're gonna add in the tortellinis. These don't take long, about 5 minutes. What they're gonna do, they're gonna add a little bit of starch in here. It's gonna thicken up the soup. Also, they're gonna double in size. They're gonna puff up, but they cook pretty fast. We're gonna go ahead and add the tortellinis in. And then we're gonna let this go for 5 minutes, just until the tortellinis are done cooking. Then we're gonna taste this and we're gonna adjust the seasoning. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. Our tortellinis are done. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna turn off the heat. And we're probably gonna have to add some more salt and pepper to this. I'm just gonna taste it. Does need a little more salt and pepper. I didn't add much, so a little salt, a little black pepper. Go ahead and stir that in. Now, I told you guys I love basil, so I'm gonna add some chiffonade basil because I wanna get that burst of basil flavor when I'm eating this. I'm gonna go ahead and taste it one more time. Remember, you can always adjust the seasoning at the end. Ooh, that's delicious, guys. It's perfect right there. Let's go ahead and serve this up. A couple nice ladles of our soup. We're gonna add a nice amount of some Parmesan cheese right on top. And I told you guys I love basil, so we're gonna add a little bit more fresh basil right on top. And there it is, guys. That's our delicious tortellini soup. Let's go ahead and give it a try. For how simple this is, it's freaking incredible. I'll tell you that right now. You get a huge burst of tomato flavor right in your face. It's like a tomato soup on steroids. The tortellinis are cooked perfectly, nice and al dente. You taste the Parmesan, you taste the Romano inside of the tortellini. If you want to use other types of tortellini, you can. These are just my favorite kind, especially with this soup. You get a nice burst of basil flavor. I love basil, I've said it 1,000 times. If you don't want to use as much basil, you don't have to, but I do like a little bit of the fresh basil at the end. I like to add the basil in stages so you really taste it throughout the soup. Our tomatoes are nice and tender. It's very important to let this simmer for 20 minutes so the tomatoes get nice and soft. You know, you can make a grilled cheese, you can dunk it in this soup. I'm sure it'll be excellent. For how simple this is to make, only a few ingredients. You're gonna wanna add it to your rotation, especially during soup season. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you learned something, give me a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.